Hello guys! Okay, let's quickly take a look at the necro build that you wanna run in Orviords. Please keep in mind this build it's only meant for public tags and for blob fights, alright? So it's not a build that is meant for roaming, GVG or anything like that. So let's take a look at the build. First we're gonna start with the must-have trait lines. So let's take a look at Soul Reaping first. The first passive here that you're gonna have it's Gluttony. It increases the life force that you gain from your skills by 10%. So staff 1, marks and so on gonna generate just a bit more life force. The first active that you wanna go for is Soul Marks. It's a must-have. It's gonna make all your marks unblockable. This will help you always to hit your soft CC like chill, poison and stuff like that. And also you're never gonna miss your Condi transfer right here. So when you are Condi bombed, you're gonna press 4 and this is gonna save you. You're gonna remove all the conditions on you pretty much all the time when you hit 5 targets, right? Okay, let's take a look at the next passive, Last Gasp. This will give you a passive stun break and protection when you reach 50% HP. Also when you're gonna get hit, you're gonna get some life force for 8 seconds. It's not bad, but don't count on it as a stun break or anything like that. Your aim is not to go under 50% HP. The next trait here is Vital Persistence. This will give you 1.8k increased HP. Also is gonna reduce your F's skills here by 20%. So it's a must-have as well. You cannot choose anything else on this line. For the next passive, maximum life force is increased, really good passive. You're also gonna deal 5% more damage when you are above 50% HP, so it's not bad. And the last active here is Doomfire. Shroud skill 1 inflicts burning, and keep in mind, you're gonna apply burn when you hit a target with your shade, but you're also gonna apply burn, you're gonna proc Doomfire whenever you press F2, F3, F4 and F5. Okay, so if you do a full shade bomb, like F1, and you paste roll through the keyboard all the way to F5, you're gonna apply 5 stacks of burning on your targets. Okay, the next trait line, let's take a look at Scourge. The first active here, you always wanna go for Abrasive Grit, because whenever you grant a barrier to yourself or an ally, you're gonna remove one Condi from the target, and you're gonna give them 2 stacks of might. Okay, so you apply AoE barrier for your party with your healing skill and also with F3. Okay, so if you just press heal skill and F3, you already removed 2 Condis from yourself and from your party, and you're gonna apply 4 stacks of might to all these targets. I see some people going for this trait here because they think they're gonna get just a little bit more life force gain, right? But it doesn't work like that, because you have a 3 seconds internal cooldown on this, okay? So every 3 seconds you're gonna get 5% life force. It's not bad, but you cannot drop this for the extra life force, because you're gonna get life force from kills mostly on a blob fight. Also you have marks that generate life force and torch 4 and so on. Okay, so you don't need this. Just go for the Condi removal for your party, because it adds up. Okay, you are not the only necro running this. Let's take a look at the passive traits that you're gonna have here. So Sand Sage and Blood and Sand. So whenever you have a shade active, from Blood and Sand you're gonna get 15% reduced damage, and from Sand Sage you're gonna get 15% increase Condi duration and 15% increased boon duration whenever you have a shade active. The active here that you wanna go for, it's Unending Corruption. What this does, whenever you press F1, you corrupt. Okay, so whenever, let's say a blob is pushing you from this side, you press F1, you cast your shade, you corrupt the boons. It's only one boon corrupt, but again, you are not the only necro doing this at the same time. Picture 20 necros doing the shade bomb at the same spot at the same time. You're gonna corrupt a lot of boons, and this is pretty much how you you destroy the enemy that's pushing you, because you're gonna fear their front line, you're gonna fear them, you're gonna chill them, you're gonna cripple them, so they cannot push you anymore. So this is really important. You have no other option to go for here. See people going for this, for the extra burn and reduce cooldown on the punishment skills. It's not worth it, trust me. The boon strip here is the thing that you wanna aim for. And the last active, it's Sand Savant. Again, is the only option here. It's gonna increase the radius of your shade. Also, it's gonna make your shade hit 2 more targets. So instead of 3 targets, you're gonna hit 5 targets with your shade. There's no other option to go for here. This is the only thing that you wanna go for. Okay, let's take a look at the first straight line. You have 2 options here. You either go with Curses or Spite. It really depends on the fight. If you go with Curses, your build is gonna be focused a bit more on Condi damage, and you wanna go with Curses if your commander is not pushing. So if you have fights at range, if you pirate ship a lot, if that's how your commander plays, you wanna go with Curses. If your commander is pushing deep into the enemy, and you do big pushes and stuff like that, you wanna go with Spite and focus a bit more on power damage. So let's take a look at the trait lines. First we're gonna start with Curses. The first passive here is gonna give you 33% on chance on critical hit to inflict bleeding, also 20% bleeding duration, which is not bad. For the first active, you have 2 options here. You either go with Plague Sending if you have problems with Condis, like if you think your Guardian is not cleansing you enough, if you get Condi bombed a lot and you cannot cleanse enough, then sure, go for Plague Sending. So whenever you press F5, you're gonna get a buff on you, and the next target you're gonna hit, you're gonna transfer 2 Condis to that target. So let's see, if I press F5 now, you can see I get Plague Sending here. And now if I hit a target with any skill, I don't need to hit it with F5. I can hit it even with Staff 1. Right? When I have that buff on me, I'm gonna transfer 2 Condis to the target if I have Condis on me. Okay? So keep in mind this will only proc once in 24 seconds, because this is the cooldown of Desert Shroud. Now, the other option here, if you don't have problems with Condis, the other option would be Terrifying Descent. So what this does, whenever you inflict fear, you also apply Torment. So you do AoE fear with Staff 5, you fear with F4, it's an AoE fear as well. And whenever you convert stability into fear, with a Well of Corruption for example, you also gonna apply Torment to the targets that you fear. So this trait here, if you don't have Condi problems, it's a little bit of DPS increase, so it's not bad at all. Okay, let's look at the next passive. So whenever you press F5, you're gonna get 5 seconds of Fury. Now, the next active, you wanna go for Path of Corruption when you play with Curses, no matter what. You don't even need to look at the other traits, always go with Path of Corruption. So whenever you press F2, you're gonna corrupt boons to 5 targets. Okay, this is the best thing to have. It's not as effective as it used to be, because now your shade has a 30 seconds recharge cooldown, so you cannot really spam your F1 and F2 boon strip that much as you could do it before. But if you go with Curses and you only pirate ship, it's still good to have. It's an extra boon strip. Okay, when you shade bomb, instead of corrupting only 1 boon, you're gonna corrupt 2 boons because you have 2 as well. The next passive here is gonna give you a little bit of increased critical chance on targets that have Condis on them, and also you're gonna get a little bit of Condi damage boost. Okay, you're gonna get 13% Condi damage out of your precision, so it's just a little bit of Condi damage boost mostly for this one. And the last trait here, again, you have 2 options. If you think your Guardian doesn't heal enough, if you don't have enough sustain on you, you can go for the middle trait. It's gonna heal you for 10% of the Condi damage that you do. So keep in mind, it's not a fast skill heal, it's not a burst heal, it's just a slow sustain, okay? So if you think you need this on a fight, then feel free to run it. If not, just go for the weakening shroud. So whenever you do F5, and it also works on your shade, so if you put your shade there, for example, and you press F5, you're gonna cast weakening shroud on your shade. So you're gonna apply AoE bleeding, AoE weakness, and you're gonna have another boon converted to a condition on 5 targets. The only downside of this is that your shade has a 300 radius, and weakening shroud it's only 240 radius. So it's gonna look something like this. If you put a shade here, your weakening shroud has the range of a mark, okay? So you can see the mark compared to the shade, that's what your weakening shroud radius is gonna be. Okay, so we cover curses. Let's move into spite trait line. Again, this is more for deep pushes, and it's a little bit more focused on power. Okay, so the first passive, Shroud skill 1 grants might. So whenever you press the shade, you're gonna get 1 stack of might. And this also works the same way as Doomfire works. So whenever you press F2, F3, F4, F5, you're also gonna get might from this trait. And it has no internal cooldown. So if you do a fast shade bomb, you're gonna get 5 stacks of might on you. Only from this trait. Okay, the first passive that you wanna go for here. You see some people are going for this, for the extra Condy Cleanse on heal, and you get 1k more healing when you press the healing skill. I mean, if you really think you're gonna need this, if you think that extra Condy Cleanse only on yourself is gonna help you in any way, and that extra healing is gonna help you, if you find yourself in that situation, then you can try it, but I do not recommend this. The thing you wanna aim for, it's a Spiteful Talisman. So you're gonna get 5% damage increase on targets with no boons. Okay, that's an extra, but the main thing here is that you're gonna get 20% reduced cooldown on your axe and focus skills. Okay, so if you go to axe, for example, if you bomb with your staff and you switch to axe, right? Instead of 12 seconds cooldown on the Unholy Fist here, you're gonna have 9 seconds cooldown. So what this allows you to do, when you switch to axe and you cast axe 3, you can cast it one more time before you switch back to the staff. If you have 12 seconds cooldown on it, you won't be able to do that, because you need to wait like 3 more seconds after you can swap weapons to cast it again. This allows you to cast it and then immediately switch weapons when the weapon cooldown, when the weapon switch cooldown is over. So keep that in mind. The next passive here, deal more damage while downed. That's not important, but inflict vulnerability when you strike a foe below the 50% health. So again, this has no internal cooldown. The 10 seconds cooldown that you see on it, it only applies to the same target, right? So, for example, if you hit 5 targets that are under 50% HP, you're gonna apply vulnerability to all of them. And if you hit 5 more targets, different targets that are under 50% HP, you're gonna apply vulnerability to them. So this is how the trait works. Don't count too much on it, because when you have people under 50% HP, if you run the correct traits, like the next trait that we're gonna aim for, Chill of Death, plus your revs and elementalists are running the 20% increased damage to targets under 50% HP, they're gonna go down easily, okay? But keep that in mind, this is how the passive trait here works. Anyway, let's move to the next active trait. You wanna go for Chill of Death. There's no other options. You don't even need to look at the other traits. This is the most important trait and the only option that you have here. So when you hit a target with any skill that's under 50% HP, you're gonna cast Spinal Shivers on them. So Spinal Shivers, as you can see, it's gonna remove up to 3 boons, and if you remove 3 boons, you're gonna deal massive damage on the target, and you're also gonna chill them. So even when you are at range and you just do a small bomb with your marks, if you get like a Guardian or a Necro under 50% HP and you have like 2 Necros casting your marks in front, and both of the Necros will proc Spinal Shivers, probably that Necro or Guardian or whatever he is, he's gonna go down from that. And that will give you an opening, or it's gonna give your commander an opening to do a small push or a big push, you know. So it's a really good trade to have here. The next passive, gain might when you strike a foe below the 50% HP. It has 1 second internal cooldown. And the last active that you wanna go for, I see people going for close to that. This is not good in my opinion, because it's gonna give you 20% increased damage only to the targets that are under 50% HP. But keep in mind, your revs are running this trait, your elementalists have the same trait here, so you have the damage to finish off low HP people. And you also have Chill of Death running, right? So what I recommend going for would be the Spiteful Spirit here, because whenever you press F5, you're gonna proc this trait. What this does is gonna convert 2 boons into conditions in a 600 radius to 5 targets. And if the targets are under 50% HP, you're gonna convert 4 boons to conditions. You also deal some, let's say, decent power damage with this, and you're gonna get, if you hit 5 targets, you're gonna get 15 seconds of retaliation, which is not bad. And it also does cripple. So I think this is the best option here, but this doesn't work like Weakening Shroud. Okay, so downside of this is that it only procs from your character and it doesn't proc from your shade. So if I put my shade in front and I press F5, this will not proc from the shade. It's gonna proc in a 600 radius around your character. So if I wanna hit this NPC with that trait, with F5, the range is gonna be like 1 shade away. Okay, this is about 600 range from me to that NPC, because your shade is at 300 radius, which means that from the start to the end is gonna be 600 range. So this should be like the radius of your Spiteful Spirit here. Okay, I guess we covered all the lines here. But remember, Spite is a bit more focused on deep pushes and power damage, while the Curses, it's focused on pirate ship and range combat. Let's take a look at the utility now. You always wanna go for Sand Flare here, is the best heal, because you apply barrier to you and your party. It's a pretty big barrier. Also some self heal, and if you are on 240 radius of your enemy, you're also gonna convert 1 boon into Torment and Cripple, right? To 5 targets, but don't use this as a boon corrupt. Okay, use it to give barrier. You can even give barrier before the push. So this is how you should use this most of the time. Now, Trail of Anguish. This is your only stun break. So the way you want to use this trait, it's only for stun break. Don't use it to give yourself stability before you get stunned. Don't use it to get swiftness. Don't use it to boon convert. Don't use it to do damage. You only and only use it for stun break. That's it. The next utility, I use Well of Suffering for the extra power damage spike. It's unblockable, it does a lot of power damage, it's really good. Now, if you are new at Warviord or new at Necromancer and you find yourself not being able to keep up with the tag, you are getting outpositioned, then feel free to go for Sandswell. Because this will help you reposition. You can see it's a portal, so if you're on a portal, you cast it and you win a 900 range. Also 20 people can port through it. You can also port back through it, so it's not bad to reposition. But remember, this will port you and 20 more people. So on a blob if you do organized fights using Sandswell, if you want to push with Sandswell or you want to go in a cheesy position with Sandswell, then your commander can ask like 3-4 Necros to run this trait, and the rest of the Necros can run a Well of Suffering for the extra damage. So I prefer Well of Suffering if you are new to Warrior, if you find yourself out of position, or if your commander is asking for it, feel free to switch this for Sandswell. It's not a bad skill. Okay, the next utility, Well of Corruption. You never drop this. Again, it's an unblockable well that corrupts boons. It lasts 5 seconds and it pulses every second. So remember, you are not the only Necro doing this. Usually any single commander is gonna ask for a well bomb. So picture that there are 20 wells that corrupt boons at the same time and your enemy has to move through them. Okay, it's gonna be like if you do Well of Corruption and Well of Suffering at the same time, it's gonna be a massive spike. Okay, you're gonna get people down in that well bomb no matter what they do. For the elite, you wanna go with Ghastly Breach. This works, let's say it works similar to the Well of Corruption, but you cannot cast it at range, you can only cast it on yourself like this. So you have two situations where you use this. You either use it to self-bomb if your enemy is pushing you, or you can, when you push deep, if you get downies, you use it on the way to the downies, or just you push deep, you double dodge to your enemy and you cast it on your enemy. It's really up to the commander, he's probably gonna call it if it's needed. But these are the situation where you mostly gonna use it all the time. For the weapon skills, the marks are pretty self-explanatory. Mark 2, it's small damage with very low cooldown bomb, so always use it off cooldown to harass your enemy. Staff 3, it's 16 seconds cooldown. It's a soft CC because you apply chill and also poison, so you kill the sustain of your enemy with it. Staff 4 is the most important here because it's gonna transfer 3 condis to one target, so you can hit 5 targets with it. If you hit 5 targets, in theory you could transfer 15 condis. Okay, so if you are full condi bombed and you hit 5 targets, you're gonna transfer all the condis and you can, you know, survive longer. So don't use it for damage, use it mostly for condi cleansing yourself. And staff 5, fear, damage, unblockable, you know, use it, try to use it on the middle line most of the time, or if more Necros are using it, like if you use a Well of Corruption, if you do a well bomb in front, after you well bomb you see you stripped your enemy, use staff 5 to fear them again. If you do a shade bomb, again you strip enemies, follow up with staff 5 to fear them, because remember F1 it's boon stripping. So yeah, that's how you wanna use it. You wanna use it on targets that don't have stability, so you can actually get the fear. For the other weapon set, what you wanna run, it's Axe, and you either go with Torch, or if you play with Spite and you wanna try Focus, then feel free to go for the Focus because you get Spinal Shivers as active, but this is a bit more for single target focus. So if you wanna focus single target, sure, go with Focus, you do Focus 5, you reap 3 boons from your target. Then you focus. Then you follow up with Axe 2, which is a power damage burst. I don't have a target here to show you, but anyway, it's gonna cast for about 1 second, and you see it's a bit more than 1 second, and it's gonna deal a whole lot of damage if you run power with Spite. So if you're Spite again, you go Focus. I'm gonna show you the skills here. Okay, so you do Focus 5 for the Boon Reap, then you follow up with Axe 2, and your target is gonna get very low on health. So this is really good for single target focus. But on blobs, I'll be honest with you, on public tags I prefer to run Torch, because Torch 4 it's AoE damage, it's burning, so how you wanna use this? When you push, you do Torch 4 on your enemy, or if you just pirate ship, you get Downies in front of you. You can go close because this is 600 range. You cast Torch 4 on the Downies. Okay, so this is how you wanna use this. Also Torch 5, it has no line of sight, so if I'm here and someone, let's say, is behind this wall, but he's within the 900 range, if I can select my target over the wall and I press Torch 5, it's gonna hit, so it's really effective to kill siege with. If you actually hit people with it from time to time, if your target is not moving, you might get an interrupt, but yeah, don't count too much on Torch 5. Okay, use Torch for Torch 4, and Torch 5 mostly for clearing siege and stuff like that. Anyway, the most important skill here, it's Axe 3. And this is what you wanna use most of the time, as soon as you switch your weapon to Axe. So, after you use all your cooldowns here, you switch to Axe, you go in, you have a 600 radius boon convert. You convert 2 boons on 5 targets, on each target, okay? So it's really strong, and you can cast it twice before you switch back to your staff. Okay, I guess we covered all the skills and the traits. Okay, we didn't cover the F skills. So again, your shade with the traits is gonna be a boon convert, plus you're gonna do damage, you're gonna burn, cripple and torment as well. So you need to use this wisely now, because it's not 10 seconds cooldowns anymore, it's 30 seconds cooldown now because they nerfed it. So try not to mess up your shade bomb ever, because you cannot spam it anymore. The F2, it really depends if you're running curses or spite. This will cleanse 1 condi on 5 targets around you. And if you run curses, it's gonna boon convert on 5 enemy targets. And it also gonna proc damage and burn from Doomfire. It's gonna proc your F1 again, basically. And so does all the other traits here. F3 again, it's gonna proc F1, plus it's gonna give yourself barrier, plus barrier to your party. Okay, so it's really good. F4 it's a fear and damage skill, and F5 is your shroud, depends if you go curses or spite. You saw the trace for it. This is gonna change accordingly to your build. What you have to keep in mind, let me stack some life force here. Also, if you need life force, you can always switch a trait for Bone Fiend, Shadow Fiend. You're gonna equip it. You're gonna cast the Shadow Fiend once, then you switch back to what you had before. I had Trail of Anguish, and my Trail of Anguish doesn't have a cooldown, and I gain some life force doing that. Okay, it also works with the Bone Fiend, it's the same thing, so if you ever need to stack some life force and you don't have any other ways to do it, feel free to do that. Now, an important thing, for example, if you Shade Bomb on the left side, and you press F5, but you don't have any more enemies there. Let's say you fucked up the shade. You can cast it again on the right side where your enemy is, and you can see your F5 is still gonna proc from the new shade. So if you ever mess up your shade and you already press F5, just reposition your shade where the enemy is. Okay, another thing that you can do with F1, it's a fake shade bomb. So how you do that? You press F1, then you cancel your skill. So F1 and cancel. F1, cancel. Okay, it's really easy to do it. So whenever I F1 and cancel, I save my cooldown. So it doesn't, the shade doesn't go on cooldown, but your enemies will see red circles. So if someone casts this on me, I can see the red circle. Okay, I don't see it because it's a friendly shade, but an enemy will see a red circle and is gonna be tempted to dodge that. But you actually fake it. You actually do 0 damage with that. There's no damage on it. You just fake it. That's it. You bait the dodge of your enemy, and then you cast it again and shade bomb where your enemy is dodging. So yeah, if you are advanced, you can try to do this, bait some dodges, bait some skills out of your enemies, but yeah, this is a bit more advanced stuff right now. Okay, I guess we covered all the skills here. Let's go a bit over the gear that you wanna run. So the best combination, in my opinion, at the moment, it's celestial armor, full celestial armor, celestial weapons as well, and grieving trinkets. All my trinkets are grieving. Now, depends if you're running spite or curses. If you go with spite, go for the power infusions. If you go with curses, go for the condi damage infusions. Now, for weapon sigils. I don't have the correct weapon sigils because I'm not using this necro for public blob fights, but what you wanna run on the staff, it's energy sigil plus frenzy sigil. The frenzy, let me see if you can buy it, if I can show you on the trading post. You can also buy it from the WvW or the NPC. So, frenzy sigil recharge all equipped skills by 2 seconds when you kill an enemy. So after the shade cooldown nerf, this is really good and it's a must in my opinion, because when you kill somebody you're gonna get 2 seconds recharge. So on paper you could get your shade to recharge within 24 seconds, but that's never gonna happen. If you're lucky, you're gonna get 4 seconds reduced cooldown on your shade. So instead of 30 seconds recharge cooldown, you're gonna have 26 seconds recharge cooldown on your shade. Plus all your other skills that are on cooldown. When you're gonna kill somebody, 2 seconds will drop off that cooldown. So again, on the staff, energy and frenzy. On the axe and torch, you wanna run again energy and the stacking sigil. You wanna go, if you run spite, you wanna go for bloodlust. I have it on my staff at the moment. So sigil of bloodlust on your axe. If you go with curses, you wanna go for sigil of corruption. I think, okay, I have them both here. You can see the sigils here. So again, curses, go with corruption to stack condi damage. Spite, you go with bloodlust to stack power damage. And for the runes, rune of the berserker, I think is the best option. You get power damage, you get condi damage, you also get 5% increased damage and a 5% increased condi damage. Okay, so this is for DPS, this is the best rune that you wanna go for. On this build you don't have much of an alternative in my opinion. I think this is the best option. Okay, so we covered the gear, we covered the traits, we covered the weapon skills and utilities. So let's take a look at the food that you wanna run. For the oils you have, again, condi variant, or if you wanna go with power, you go with the sharpening stones. Now, for food, you have 2 options. If you can get downies on your pushes, and if you can survive already, and you don't need extra surviving tools, then go for this food here. Is the most offensive stats that you can get from any food in the game. Okay, you're gonna get 340 stats when you kill somebody, and on a public blob fight you're gonna get down is pretty fast, because let's face it, someone is always gonna die. Okay, so the only downside of this is that you won't have any stats at the start of the fight, but when you get your first down you're gonna get 340 stats. Okay, so this is really good to have in my opinion. It's a good offensive food if you don't have problems surviving. The second options, if you are struggling, if you cannot survive well, the damage reduction food is the best option on this situation. The minus 10% damage is noticeable. Run it, try it, you're gonna see a difference. And you have, of course, you're gonna get 70 condi damage from this, or you can go with the power variant if you go for spite, with 70 power damage and 10% damage reduction. Okay, so This food is mostly helpful when you run with Spite. I had a full stack of Condi damage food, so I'm using the Condi damage one, but if you go with Spite, if you haven't crafted it yet, just go for the power damage instead of the Condi damage here. But again, if you are new at the game, you probably cannot get this food because you need to have some PV map unlocked from the previous expansion. I'm not sure where it was, but you can wiki the food and find out how to craft it. But if you are new at the game, if you didn't play on Heart of Thorns expansion, you probably don't have the map unlocked, and you need to buy it with gems from the Black Lion company. But yeah, if you can craft this food, then go for it. It's a really good food, and it's gonna help you stay alive by a lot. Okay, I think we covered everything. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I hope this was helpful, some people at least. So thank you guys for watching and have a nice day.